I just knew like every time I made a play, like it was like a bank account, like the cash sign in my head. So I was like, every time I made a play, it was like a cha-ching. So what I do nowadays is like I'll include whether it's a specific video that I've done previous, and then maybe throw in when you play each game, and it's like whatever. I think the base salary when I first came in the league was like.
You are now listening to the MVP podcast, where we explore the business of sports. My name is Courtney.
And I'm Jimmy.
And on this episode, we spoke to professional football player Stavros Katsantonis from the CFL's Hamilton Tiger Cats. Now, on this conversation, we got deep into Stavros's last contract negotiation. We talked about how he fumbled the financial bag as a rookie and everything he had to do to climb back in the years to follow. We talked about building a personal brand, knowing your value, and then also, if you stay to the end, Stavros gives his exact blueprint that he uses to approach companies and set up brand deals for himself.
Tons of free gems in this episode. So do us a favor, pay us back by hitting that follow button or subscribing wherever you get this podcast, and also share it with a friend. Without further ado, here's our conversation.
Okay, Stav. So recently, it's not that recent anymore, but at the end of the 2023 season, you signed a new contract with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
This is your first time negotiating a new contract, I assume, right? It's a little different than coming in as a rookie, but what was that whole experience like?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because everyone probably thinks like it just started at the end of the season or a few weeks before I signed it, but it actually goes back to kind of like the middle of like March of this past year when, Hamilton was looking at extending me. And that goes back, obviously I have an agent and, he's a really good dude and taking that back to like, I think when I first got drafted, there's really nothing that like happens. You get drafted, everything is like, okay, you're making this much money, you maybe get like an extra like $2,000 of like housing money, and that's about it, which is like kind of like the new change of the new CBA, like as of like 2021 or 2020. So don't got to cover that too much because there's nothing really that happens there. But my, I guess, kind of experience with it was like mid-March. There was talks of extending, and kind of my whole thing with my agent, and he was kind of on the same page as me, was just not really interested in extending at that point, mainly because, I was just kind of the special teams guy, and we wanted to kind of play out the rest of my contract and just see, kind of see what happened. And we were heading into the season as the backup safety, dime package guy. And then Tunde kind of goes down. I step in and then start making like a lot of plays, and then phone calls started happening again. It's like, all right, well, how is the extension going to go now? Like, and for us, it was like, well, the yesterday's price isn't today's price type of deal. So, the money that they were offering us at that extension talks was like not even like close to what like I was thinking I wanted or what I felt like I deserved, kind of from what other guys were getting. But it was still kind of early, right? Like from that time period, that was maybe like my fourth or fifth game that I had started. So I think, it had like one or two interceptions maybe. But still hadn't had like the full season under my belt, which was kind of what the commentary was from the front office side of Hamilton was, oh yeah, well, hasn't played, hasn't started every single game, yada yada yada, this and that. So if anything, I think I really enjoyed that because it really just fueled me to play like I just knew like every time I made a play, like it was like a bank account, like the cash sign in my head. So I was like, every time I made a play, it was like a cha-ching. Like that was like kind of like my thing is like, okay, I gotta make as many plays. I mean, I already had this mentality anyways, but I think it was just like, it was the cherry on top, knowing that like every time I made a good play, like it was contributing to, my future in the league. So there was a lot of definitely back and forth throughout the season, like almost like you want to call it like a 7 or 8 month negotiating period from when it, negotiations actually first started. So like a hats off to my agent, for taking care of all that. But yeah, it's definitely like a whirlwind of everything that went down. And I mean, it couldn't have gone down like any more perfect than it did for me this season.
How many CFL season, 18 games, how many games did you end up starting?
15, 16 if you count the playoff game.
16 games. So you basically got a full season in. Not
Yeah.
exactly, but more or less. You'd had spot duty in previous years. I remember even then though, as that, quote unquote dime package guy, you made some plays and had some flashes. And I was always somebody who's like, yo, listen, say what you want about special teams. This dude got ball skills. And I feel like that was big time on display in 23, ended the season with 5 picks. So like when you go into the negotiation now and you're racking up a little bit of basically like firepower to go to the negotiating table. How does that work? Is it looking at other guys similar age, similar production, and trying to see what they got paid? Or do you just talk to your agent and you just say like, I just have a number of what I want, period, just based on how I feel like other guys on my
Right.
team are making? Like, what is that? How do you even rationalize?
Yeah, I think for me, and my agent will say this, like I'm very like in tune with I guess like how the finances work of the league, like your value as a player, other players' values, and how that compares to you, especially like at the position level. But like for me going into that process, at first it was like you make your first, whatever pick six, and you're like, oh man, they're gonna need to break the bank for me, like that type of thing. But your agent is kind of there also to kind of guide you and be like, all right, like, yeah, you made a play, like let's calm down though, because we still got 16 or 14 more games left to go plus playoffs, and like you need to be consistent. So
Right.
and then also he's being kind of the intermediary between myself and the front office in terms of those talks. So he's like, all right, well, so and so they said this, this is what they think, in terms of like what you're worth right now. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. That's their opinion, whatever. Like,
Right.
I'm just going to go continue to play.
Yeah.
But for me, in terms of like finding like that exact, I guess, dollar number or whatever that you want to, call like that number that I was thinking of, I really looked around first, just kind of to the guys that were in the league currently, how many plays they were making. Like that was kind of my thing. Like,
Right.
what type of plays are they making? And then like, what type of player are, like, if they're not making plays, then what type of player are they, from the defensive standpoint, that's like either A, not like allowing them to make plays, or B, like the offense is just not throwing to this guy because like he's
Right.
just that type of dude.
Affecting the game in different ways.
Yeah, it's like, how do you affect the game? Like some guys may not get interceptions, but like they may not just throw the ball over there, or you might not like get tackles, but they just may not run the ball your way. Like, so I think that has its own level of respect and value in and of itself. So looking at that, and then the CFLPA website kind of has a cool thing where you can kind of go on there and look at everybody's contract and see what everybody's making. So it is and it isn't public information. You always see like the 3 down articles, like as soon as a guy gets signed. I'm surprised my contract actually isn't already out there, but like anytime a quarterback gets signed, it's like, we know he's making this much, he's got this incentive, all that stuff. So for me, I would go on there and kind of look at what guys did in their, whether it was their first season, second season, or third season, and like how many plays they make, because at the end of the day, the stats speak for themselves, regardless
It's all about production.
Right. Regardless of what type of player you are. Like, I think Simone always says your film is your currency. I've heard him say that like every single year. So that always definitely related to me. But being able to see kind of what the other guys are making, like, like Tunde obviously being one of the highest paid guys. You got Marc-Antoine Dequoy, who's up there as well. Royce Mechie. Those are the 3 top safeties in the league heading into 2023. And then you got Brandon Alexander, who's kind of like the kind of different guy because he's an American. And there's not a lot of veteran American safeties that play in the CFL, let alone like play the position really good.
Right.
And then his thing is different, right? Because he's played so long. You kind of know this, Courtney. Like the longer you play, you kind of have to start like you don't have as much negotiating power, and you've also been playing for the same place. It's like, would you rather take this little bit of money from the team that is like solid and you're getting the best bang for your buck, or do you want to go make maybe like 10, 20K more, but be on a team and you might not make the playoffs? So like you kind of weigh that in too, because I know like he's a phenomenal player, so like. Yeah, he should probably be making like what the top safety would be making, but he doesn't because of that. Right. So that's kind of one of the things that I looked at too, is like, that type of guy. And then like the rookie guys that are in the CFL is like, okay, these guys are making whatever the base salary that I'm making. I got to separate myself so much more in terms of like the statistic level to be on par and like nullify the fact that I haven't started for 2 seasons compared to guys like veteran guys that have had all-star seasons like, Tunde, Marc-Antoine Ducroix,
Right.
Mechie, just you go down the list and it's like, all right, this is what I have to do. Like, this is the baseline. And I actually went back and, this may be just kind of crazy, but I went back and looked at like everybody's like whatever, just interceptions and like turnovers from like kind of their career.
Yeah.
So I looked at like, Tunde's, Royce Mechie's, Marc-Antoine Ducroix's, Brandon Alexander's. And I'd always look at that and be like, all right, those are like their career interceptions, or that's the most interceptions that they've had in the season. Yeah. I think I went and looked at Courtney's one time too. I think he was in the double digits. I think he's like around 11. Am I not correct? Not counting your playoffs?
Chill. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm up there. Yeah, that's about right. 11, 12, maybe.
Yeah. So I would look at that and just look at when guys came out of their rookie contracts, like how that year was for them, and then like what that jumped to from that base salary to their next one. So it's definitely like a huge calculated game. And then kind of looking at the trends of the game too, right? Like with Tunde not playing as much this year, kind of with his injury, that market was getting just driven down as it was. And then you look at like a guy like Marc-Antoine Ducroix, who I think he was in that like mid 150 range or something like that. And that, I mean, he had a phenomenal season, tied for the lead in picks with him, won the Grey Cup, was the All-Star, all the above. So like now it's like, well, he's the new standard of pay in the CFL. So it's like mid-season, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get all this money. Like I'm going to break the bank, yada, yada, yada. And then as the season ends, it's like, oh yeah, you're on par with the guy who's making the most, but the guy who was making the most, well, he didn't really play that much this season. So like, that's not the top end of it.
Yeah. So obviously you're very involved. Do you think that most athletes, most players are the same way, or do you think a lot of them rely on their agent and the representation to kind of carry them and just tell them what to do as like a passenger?
I think that's the case. I think not a lot of guys for example, I read the CBA like the day I got drafted to Hamilton, because I wanted to know like everything that like I was guaranteed and all this and that. And I don't think a lot of guys do that. I mean, I don't think you could probably count on your hands how many guys have read like the CBA from like start to finish.
I haven't read that.
See, so like not a lot of people know, like you don't know your rights at the end of the day, right? Like or when you're supposed to get paid or how you're supposed to get paid, that type of deal. Because it's important, right? Because a lot of that stuff is like the rules of engagement between the team and the player. But yeah, I would say a lot of guys probably, and for no other reason other than just you're so used to just the agent, especially like when you look at the NFL, like the agent handles everything, handles your marketing, handles who you're going to train with. Sometimes they have a financial advisor like within their staff that's telling you where and how to spend your money. And like, it's like everything's so hands off, but I think it's a little bit different in the CFL because like that, obviously that pay difference is a lot different than what it is in the NFL. So like a lot of guys just think, oh yeah, like I'll just let my agent handle everything. Like, I don't really got to worry about everything. I don't got to push for this because my agent will. But at the end of the day, if you don't make it known to your agent that you know just as much as he does, and have that same level of buy-in that he does, that like, all right, if we're gonna go the distance with this team, like I gotta know that you know the same thing that I do and be on the same level. I think that changes the game a lot for you as a player and just gives you more value because at the end of the day, you know what you can argue for and what you're worth. And I feel like you can't get, not to say it's like you're getting swindled, but I feel like you can't get taken advantage, as much when you know more,
right.
just what your value is.
You know your worth.
Yeah.
So like, how did you meet your agent? I know people get connected with agents in a lot of different ways. I remember when I was playing, guys used to DM me, guys I'd be working out with, to be like, yo, here's my film, send this to your agent, all different kinds of stuff. But like, how did you get connected with your representation?
Yeah, so I was on that same process, right? Like you have guys reach out and towards the end of your university seasons, like they come and visit you and
And you
take you
went
to
crazy in
lunch.
university, though. Let's just be honest. So it's not
Yeah.
the same for everybody. You was 3-time first team All
Right.
Canadian.
Yeah. It might not be the same for everybody. But my experience was that like had a few agents kind of hit me up, you know, took me to dinner, took me to lunch or whatever, that type of thing. And then I just kind of got connected with, his name's Fred Weinrosh. And he represents a lot of CFL guys. I'm sure you've heard of him, Court. You know, there's a lot of Canadians that he represents, a lot of Americans, and just been in the game, been in and around the game a long time. So he kind of understands it. But he kind of had reached out to me. We got connected through like a mutual friend. And yeah, he was just like, yeah, I'll represent you. And, you know, I guess one of like his guys usually are more from like the Ontario area, because that Ontario, Quebec is kind of his, I guess, his market, because that's where he's at most of the time. He's in Montreal and does a lot of traveling. I think he probably travels the most out of probably any of the agents in terms of going to U Sport games. Like I'll message him and be like, hey, we're in Montreal this week. You want to come out to the game? Like I got tickets. He's like, oh no, I'm down in Windsor watching, Windsor play. And then I'm in Waterloo the next day watching Waterloo. And then, the next week I'm in Laval and watching Montreal play. So he's definitely an interesting guy and he puts in the work. He's always posting all of his guys, like all of his I guess all the guys he represents. He's posting all of our highlights each week from like the games we played, like cutting it up himself, putting it out on his Instagram, where I don't think you see many agents doing that. And he sets himself apart from, the other guys. So I think that's a testament to his work ethic. Not only just in that end, but like when it comes to actual contract negotiations, definitely like for me personally, like a guy that I trust and know, like I know if I feel like I'm being overzealous with something, like he'll say like, all right, yeah, like you might be being a little too much over the end there. Like that's not going to happen. So definitely a guy that'll shoot you straight.
Definitely. So negotiate contracts and whatnot. And for the people who don't know, like your playing contract, you might agree to X amount of money, but you're only getting paid when you play a game, right? You might get a signing bonus. Potentially you can negotiate something that's going to hit your bank account in the off season as some workout bonus or something of that nature. That would be an extra, but like standard rules, you'll get a signing bonus. And then for the 18 games, you get your salary broken up into 18 chunks.
Right.
So how do you approach the other 6 months of the year if you get all your money between June and November, basically?
Right. Yeah. I wish someone would have told me that when I said I wanted to play pro football when I was a kid, that, yeah, you're only getting paid for the games you play. That was, to segue a little bit there. That was one of the things like I just didn't know, like even my last year of university ball, I didn't know that it was like, oh, you get paid each game. I just was like under the assumption that like, all right, you get your check, whatever. You're like, okay, this is your base salary. Like you're getting it all at once or something like that. Or like maybe 1 or 2 times spread out of the year, something like that. But that was a big wake up call in terms of seeing like how that money got divvied up like through 18 games. And then when you look at it that way, it's like when you play each game and it's like, whatever, I think the base salary when I first came in the league was like 65, which I'm sure when you first came in the league is a lot more than when it was then.
47 in 2013, baby.
Oh man.
47, 46 maybe. Yeah.
So seeing that divided by 18 games and it's like you play games like, man, I'm only making after taxes like $2,300. Like this doesn't seem right. Like this doesn't seem correct. But my first 2 years definitely were like the first year in particular, like I don't think I was ready financially, like understanding how the season works and like how I need to take care of myself. And because I'm coming from the college situation where everything's getting paid for and the only thing I really got to take care of is like my food for the most part. And yeah, I work I would work a job in university, and that's how I would fund that stuff. To like your full grown up mode, like find yourself a place to rent for 6 months. You got to go buy a bed if you don't have one. You got to go buy a bed frame if you're, you can't be sleeping on the ground as an adult. That's one of the things that I've learned. Just difference from college to a professional athlete, but got to put your bed up on a bed frame. You need silverware, you need, just so many things, like just at the house level. Yeah. And like that has its own cost. Like I think in training camp I think rookies make like I don't think rookies get paid. Rookies don't get paid. Yeah. So rookies don't get paid, but at the end of training camp, I remember you get paid like a lump sum of like maybe like $600. I think that's it. And that's at the very last day. To me, that was a small, very small lump.
A bump sum.
A bump sum. So for me, it was like, okay, training camp, everything's taken care of, but I'm like mid training camp, trying to make the roster as a rookie, right. not knowing my situation, because I'm number 3 behind, Mike Daly, Tunde, and could have been number 4 if Courtney came back for one more season. I would have been the 4th guy behind it. So that was a good thing for me. When I saw Courtney retired, I was like, okay, I'm one step closer to starting at free safety.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. So like in the midst of all that, and it's COVID, right? There's like restrictions. You got to wear masks, like the whole 9 yards. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to find like a place to rent. And like, kind of thankfully I had got my real estate license during COVID. So I understood like the housing market and things like that, and just like how to approach people. Because if I didn't, I don't think I would have realized like, oh yeah, just find a realtor and like just message them, see if they have anything. And that was just my thing. Like I would message like a couple realtors or places that were posted for rent on realtor.ca, and they would say like, yeah, nothing under a 1 year lease. And I would just reach out and say, hey, my name's Stavros Katsantonis, play for the Ticats. Looking to lease somewhere from May, or I think it was June 1st until, at that time it was August because of the season. It was August 1st or whatever to like December 31st. And I got a lot of like people that would say like, no, not interested in doing like 6-month lease. And then this one lady messaged me back. She said she wasn't interested. And then I just kind of like followed up, like just randomly, like just like, hey, just checking back in. Cause in my mind, I'm like, I know the other side. I know like it's COVID and like nobody's actually going to say no to money. Like when you got all these vacant places at the end of the day. Right. So I was like, oh, let me just message this lady one more time. Like maybe she'll cave. It was like a little basement suite on Fairleigh, which is like right there in the, it's in the craziness of Hamilton. But
it's not the greatest neighborhood, but
yeah, but a good starting place for a rookie. Yeah, close to the stadium. I walked to the stadium a few times and then stopped doing that, but I can get to that later. But I just messaged her back and she was like, you know what? Like, yeah, we'll do it. Went and walked through it. Like, I think the like 4th or 5th to last day of camp. It was really small. Like I'm only 5, like I say 5'10", but I'm 5'9" according to the combine measurements, but in shoes, I'm 5'10", sometimes 6 feet, depending on what shoes. But this basement suite was not made for anyone over like 6 feet. Like if you were over 6 feet, like you're banging your head on the ceiling. And I'm still like 5'9". I was hitting my head on the door to go in. Like it was a bathroom and like or washroom to get to the Canadian side with a washer and dryer built into it. So it was pretty big, but the door like overhang was low enough where like I kind of had to like tilt my head to the side, and if I didn't and I was like going on like my first step, I would like knock my head on it. So anyways, that place worked out. It was basically like a glorified studio. I think I was paying $1,300 a month for rent, and maybe like with utilities, like with Wi-Fi and everything, maybe another like $150. So that was like the biggest like money saving thing for me. But I messed up on the part of like being on my own and not realizing how busy the season is and like how tired you are when you get home. And like I would order out a lot. So like I think I went and looked back. I don't know the exact number, but I think it was in the couple of $1,000 range of money that I had spent on Uber Eats. Like I'm talking like I wouldn't even go, like I had a vehicle and I wouldn't even drive to go get it. I would just Uber Eats it because I had like the, you know, it was like I signed up for the 3-month like free Uber pass and like you got free delivery. So you kind of, they were kind of tricking you into like, yeah, you get to save a little bit, but that was kind of like my first year experience because I was like, I didn't know any better and I didn't have anyone to say like, all right, like go find a meal prep service or like even when I would try to look for them, it was just so hard to find one that was like, I mean, you're in Hamilton, like there's no one that's doing like meal prep service. Like that's all in Toronto or Oakville. And to get that, it's just like, it's way more expensive than like you would think it was.
Right.
And then on top of that, it's like cooking is difficult because you get home from practice and you're like dead tired, especially as a rookie.
Right. Yeah. Yo, that's a big learning curve, especially an 18-game season is big difference from that college season. Being on your own, managing all that extra stuff, probably being away from who knows what, your relationships, your family. It's a lot to take in. But I remember I definitely ate my first year's salary too. Like I spent a lot on food. Just because of the cooking situation. I had 3 roommates though. So we saved some money on rent, but it was definitely, I agree. It wasn't like the greatest place that I lived in, but it was kind of like what you got. And so from that experience, then moving into like year 2 and year 3, what were some of the things that you did differently? Did you start to like manage a budget or like pay attention to your money closer? Did you move in with roommates? Did you try to move further away and save money, or like what'd you do differently, or if anything at all?
Yeah. So my thing, I guess going into year 2 was obviously focus. I mean, I've always been like on the budgeting thing. Like I'm sure, you know, Dave Ramsey and his whole thing and his philosophy.
You
I know
read
some
his
guys
books
agree.
and stuff like that?
I haven't read his books, but I've like, shoot, my dad used to listen to him like before podcasting was like actually like a legitimate thing. Like my dad would listen to him like when we would go on drives to LA that like we'd be going at 5 a.m. and like or dropping us off at school, like Dave Ramsey's playing in the car. So I kind of grew up like understanding him and listening to like his you know, deals and stuff like that and kind of the budgeting thing. But I didn't really get serious about budgeting until I moved. My wife and I moved to Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho during COVID. And that was like kind of a crazy thing for us because we were just like nothing going on, right? The whole world's locked down, and we we're just like, oh yeah, let's just move up to North Idaho, like away from all our family and Lake City. I mean, a beautiful place to live, but probably like looking back on it, it's probably like not the smartest thing to do, but for us it worked out great in terms of like both of us job wise, like how we've grown into the people who we are currently. But I just remember like we moved there and we got like an apartment for rent for like, I think that was the same. It was a 2-bedroom. It was $1,300. So it was a little bit better. And it had like a view of the river, like beautiful place, like under 4-year, like it's like very new. So we had gotten that and like we had no jobs, like neither of us had jobs when we went up there.
You just went out there on hope?
Just went out there on hope and cause we were getting the, whatchamacallit, like the unemployment. So everyone was getting unemployment in California. Like you're kind of making more money than you were if you were actually working. So everyone just kind of had like this fun money. Like I knew all of my friends, all of my friends' friends, all of my family that I knew, like was the unemployment money. Cause everyone couldn't work, right? Like those were the rules. And that's how California kind of like dealt with it. So we had kind of like saved up some of that money so we could move. But then it started to kind of run out. So it's like, all right, what are we going to do? So we started doing like Instacart grocery delivery. And yeah, like we just did that and then kind of made our way through that. Didn't really like start the budgeting just like there. It was just like, all right, how can we like live paycheck to paycheck to like pay our rent right now? And it was that. And then like previous to that, my wife had worked, you know, kind of as like she was like in management / like ice cream. Like she worked at an ice cream place, but did like obviously ice cream scooping, but kind of just like a shift manager.
Yeah.
So you can see that however you want, but it was an hourly wage worker, like nothing crazy. She had no previous experience. She's working on getting her bachelor's at this time. And I was just like, all right, like we need to do something that's going to make us money. Cause we both got COVID in like November during Thanksgiving, and we couldn't deliver groceries. So we had no income coming for like 2 weeks. And like we started to panic because it was like, how are we going to make our December rent payment? I think we were probably late on it. I think we were like a week late on it because of that. Ended up getting paid. And then like January had rolled around, and it was really tight then. It was like, I think one of my close friends, they do YouTube, him and his wife, and they have kids, and they came to see us. And I don't know if I've ever told him this story, but like we had $0 in our bank account, and they're very successful, like YouTube people. Like I've known them since I was like very young, like elementary school and stuff like that. But like when your friends come up, it's like, we can't just sit in the house and be like, oh yeah, we're poor, like we can't go anywhere. So me and her being kind of not so smart, like, but having the experience and stuff, we had no money in our bank account, like just paid credit cards to like pay for dinners and stuff like that. And then once they had left, it was like, that's when we got into like full budget mode. Cause it was like, we have no money to pay for rent. Like, how are we going to make our rent payment? And it's like, all right, well, we got to do like this much Instacart between now and whatever. I think it was January 31st to make like that next rent payment. And I think on top of that, we had just bought a car. Another, like it was kind of necessary because it was snowing there. So when we first started Instacart, there was no snow, and then it dumped snow, and we're not used to that. And she's in a Honda Civic driving, and I'm in like a Ford Expedition, which is kind of good, but it doesn't have 4-wheel drive. So like we're delivering groceries in some of these places that are like 5-acre properties that aren't on like roads that have been like plowed by snow. So like we're fishtailing and stuff. I'm like, all right, we need to get like a little bit more of like a safer car. So we sold her Honda. We bought a 2015 Jeep that we still have. Obviously got a good interest rate, but the payment is the payment at the end of the day. Like no one really teaches you that part of it. So that payment's on there too, right? So we're trying to make all these payments, and to make it a long story short, we finally get it together. She goes and spends like kind of like the last of our money on getting her paralegal certificate, gets her paralegal license, and then goes and works as a paralegal for a real estate investment company, making a salaried income, which was like, to us, it was like a godsend for us, like to see her make, I think she was starting out at like $40,000 a year, but to us we felt like we were like rich at the time. So to see like us grow from that to there was just a huge thing. And now to see kind of how she's turned that into, being in HR and taking that where she's at now is kind of where she transitioned, has her master's degree, is making way more than what she made at that first job in just the past 3 years. Kind of, I know I tangent like that whole thing, but
but then it shows why you said every time you got a pick, you was seeing dollar signs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. But to like bring that into that 2021 year, it was like a lot of that money that I was making. Yeah, it was going to food and taking care of my rent, but some of it was going back home to pay off credit cards that I had built up from 2020 because we didn't have the money to be able to live the, that current lifestyle that we were living. But I didn't have a choice because I was in a lease agreement. I can't get out of my lease, or I can't get out of my car payment because, those are the things that happen when you make those decisions. So going into 2022, it was like, all right, we're finally like, we're on our feet for the most part. I think the minimum salary went up from 65 or 60 to 70,000. So got a little pay raise there, which was nice. So my thing was like, all right, I'm going to do the meal prep thing, which one of the guys on our team, Alden Darby, his girlfriend was doing her own meal prep service at the time. So like a lot of the guys got connected through him, and she was doing meal preps for like the whole team at one point. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that, Courtney,
I do.
Like she would come in, drop them off.
And seeing Darby, I'm like, Darby, are you doing Uber Eats? He's like, nah, this is mine. This is us.
Yeah. So I did that, and I saved like a ton of money, I think. And she was giving us like a way better deal than probably what she could sell them for. But it's kind of the friends and family discount is what we were all getting. But I saved a lot of money doing that. And then I got another the reason why I couldn't do roommates is because I have a dog. So I know like that sometimes doesn't jive with some guys. So I was like, I knew like I got to do a 1-bedroom. So I ended up getting another place through a mutual friend of the realtor that I had originally started with, which is the power of networking and the power of connections. So she connected me with her, and then I got like this upstairs unit that was a little bit more like 1-bedroom with like a living room and a kitchen. It was right. I won't say right where it is because I might live there once again, but it was off of like Ottawa Street.
Right.
And that area is a lot different from Fairleigh. I mean, not a total difference, but it's a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
So I got in there for whatever the past 2 years. I lived there 2022 and 2023, and I was paying like maybe $1,500 in rent. So that was kind of my main thing, is like, I know I don't need to live like the fancy, like I don't need a 2-bedroom, or I don't need to live in like a house, and that's usually where like a lot of your money gets taken, is like that. Because I know most of the guys, I'm not most of the guys, but I know most of the people like in Hamilton, if you're going to look at something for rent, it's like you're going to be paying at least like $2,000 for
Easy.
something that's nice. We're not talking like you're living in mid-level place, in the Stipely neighborhood, or off Barton Street. But if you want to live like up on the mountain, or you want to live in Ancaster, it's like, or some guys live in Burlington, it's like you're paying that premium for that. So for me, it was like, I just need something that's like semi-decent, where I'm not really going to be bothered too much. I can kind of be to myself, and I don't really stick out that much because I'm not like 6'5", 200 pounds.
Right.
So that kind of plays to my advantage, but I actually notice it a lot more now. Like when I'm walking through the neighborhood, I think the mustache is the giveaway.
You got the flow going. You got 5 pics. Your face is all over TV.
So it's a little bit harder now.
I bet it is, but it's all good. Let it work for you. Let me ask you this. Signed a new contract. Now, I'm not really asking you to disclose how much money you make, but obviously you got a raise. Do you see yourself consciously trying to maintain the same kind of lifestyle, or do you feel like you have a little more breathing room to kind of do more things that you want? Like, what do you have you thought about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think about it every day. My wife and I have talked about it. Like, I mean, like I said, we've had these conversations since like when I first came in the league, of like how I should manage my money versus like maybe sometimes I made the wrong decisions, but like now with having more money and understanding the lifestyle that I lived before is just fine enough for me. Like I don't need, I know what I need, I guess, now at this point. So like one of the things I was thinking about doing with my salary, like my, I guess, salary and things that you can do, I think with Hamilton, I don't know if every team does this, but like deferring your money. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm obviously in the 6-figure range now, and I'm sure it'll be out on all social medias very, very soon when they announce the top paid DBs in the league, but it'll be out there.
There you go.
But for me, my thing is just like, okay, I know my base salary, without incentives, is basically the minimum salary. So I already know personally, like I can live off that money and less technically. So my thing is like, okay, well, I'll just have all my money, all the outside like incentive things that are guaranteed, I'll have those just deferred to the end of the year. The housing money, the, like pick money, that type of thing. I'll just defer that all to the end of the season, and just continue to live. And if I can live a little bit below my means still on this base salary, like I'll try to do that. Because my main goal right now is paying off the truck that I have, which is something that I got in 2022. But it was a little bit of yes, I needed it, and also I didn't need it, because like I had a very old vehicle that like was starting to break down, and it was time to buy something a little bit more reliable. So I went and bought a truck. Shout out to Eastgate Ford; those guys are awesome.
There you go.
So maybe they'll do something for me there, but I got to be careful with those brand deals.
Ooh, hey, talk to me a little bit about that. We was talking about being noticed in public and stuff like that. You're a savvy guy. You talked about getting your real estate license. You talked about brand deals and whatnot. You're a person who understands the power of your worth, your value. So these days we see a lot of athletes who are developing their own brand outside of the game, like outside of the lines, and taking like their performance on the field and using that to amplify their name. So what's your take on personal brands? You've been developing your own, and like, what are your thoughts on how important that is, or how you go about building one of those?
Yeah, I think it's a huge deal. It was something that didn't really come to me until 2022. And it's a hard thing to do when you're a rookie. Like when you start getting out of the comfort zone of like, oh yeah, I want to build my brand and, make the social media videos in the locker room or whatever it is that you're doing. It's like, it can be a little bit intimidating. But in 2022, I was like, you know what? I'm not worrying about anything else. I'm going to like actively try to start building like my Instagram and my TikTok. And I just started kind of seeing like what was trending, like from a sports perspective. And I just kind of started like using those things and just putting my own spin on them. And I think like one of the first videos, like where I, quote unquote, like blew up, was I was doing something. Oh yeah, I did some like visor video, and I think like it got like 60,000 views in like less than like a few hours. And then I was like, oh crap, like this is something like you can actually do to like be something. And then I started like thinking about like, okay, repurposing them from TikTok to Instagram and kind of being like on like one plane through all these social media platforms. And then I started posting more of those videos on my Instagram, because like TikTok for me personally, I wasn't really bought into the sustainability of it, and like the hype behind it. Like, yes, it's very easy to get big quick on there, but I think there's more sustainability on like platforms like YouTube or Instagram, X now, just to name a few of those. But for me, it was starting to post on there. And I think I had about like 3,000 followers when I first came into the CFL, maybe less than that, honestly. And when I started posting these reels on there, like the Instagram algorithm just started like putting me out to just so many different people. Like I was getting followed likes. Like I had to turn my notifications off because it was like every single minute of the day, like someone was liking some sort of content piece that I had put out. I was getting some sort of new follower. And then before I knew it, I think from 2022, like the start of the season to the end of the season, I think I went from like 2,500 or like 3,000 followers to like 6,000 followers, which is about, or like 5,000 followers, which is about like where I'm at now. And I think in saying that, like building your brand as an athlete is like one of the best things you can do, because it sets you up for outside and after football, when things maybe not be coming in, like this 6-month time period where I'm off, or, we all know this game is a short game and you're not in it for very long, but you have a very big platform while you're here, because a lot of people look up to you, people listen to you. You say, hey, roll your knee pads up like this, like on Instagram, like someone's going to do it, like millions of people will watch it, and follow you for that. So I think in saying that, like being able to build that brand, if I didn't have that brand built up like that, I don't think I would be able to have monetized it in the way that I have the last 2 years. Because prior to that, I wasn't really monetizing it at all. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm posting on Instagram, I'll try to post a funny video, that type of thing. But like when you actively try to do it, it's like a job, right? You have to do it every day, show up for work,
Right.
and kind of put your head down. So I slowed down a little bit in 2023, mainly because I was just more focusing on football, with the contract coming up. Yeah, for me it was like, okay, if it's not contributing to me being the best football player, like it's not there. So it is something I'm picking back up more on now in this offseason and heading into, the future of my career, just because it's something that I enjoy doing and something I want to do. Probably when I'm done is some sort of media within the CFL or covering the CFL, whatever that covers, or maybe it's my own show of some sorts. I do have something in the works with another CFL player on my team.
There you go.
Coming up here, so I won't give too much insight into that, but there will be a nice little commercial coming out for that here in the next little bit. But
there you go.
That in saying that, because of what I've done in the past 2 or 3 years, and what I've learned on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, from people that have done it and have had success with it, that has now in turn allowed me to do things like this, like come on your podcast and being able to do my own podcast here in the next couple of weeks, and being able to run my Instagram properly and being able to monetize it, and so just add another level on that end.
Let me ask you this. You talked about monetizing it. You have way more followers than the average person who's just posting pictures of their family might, but you don't necessarily have hundreds of thousands of followers on your social media, but you're still able to monetize it. So like what is the strategy, or what tactics do you use to approach a brand? Or like how do you have like a pitch deck or like a one sheet? Like how do you even start the conversation of like I'm here for service and like let's work together? Like what does that process look like?
Right. Yeah. I think, Mason Bennett was one of the guys that kind of started, I guess, turning me on to the brand deals things a little bit more in 2022. I think Endy mattresses was a big thing. Like it's like almost every CFL player got like an Endy mattress. It kind of seemed like, but he was just like, hey, this is the message I sent them. Like just copy it, put your own spin on it and send it to them. So I did that. They reached out really quickly and like, yeah, we'd love to partner with you. We'll send you a mattress. Take a picture of it, post about it, whatever. And that's all you got to do. So, and that was like $1,000 mattress. So then I was like, okay, well, how can I do this where it's like, I get things that like, not necessarily that I didn't want a bed, but like I get more of like the money side of it instead of just like doing like, oh yeah, you get a free product. And especially like when you're a smaller, creator or, social media influencer, it is a lot tougher to get for sure the major, like, I mean, Nike, any of those, if you don't have over, like 50K or 100K, 1,000 followers, like, yeah, you can probably kiss those ones goodbye. But there's so many small businesses and companies that most of them like align with, I mean, not most of them, but there are ones like out there that will align with what you believe in or what you like or what you support. And almost always they're willing to work with you. Just like they don't have people always reaching out to them. So I would say for people that are looking to, I guess, get into that is nowadays is take advantage of AI. Like with all these different AI, Chat GPT, it was a thing that I kind of started to use even more now, with just building out better, more well put together emails that I could send off to marketing executives and people that are, the way I sometimes talk isn't the way I look on email. Like we have our, the person we are when we're talking to our friends and, having a drink or whatever. And then there's the person that's an email that sounds professional and can sound a little bit different and maybe make you think like, oh, hey, this guy kind of knows what he's doing. We should do a brand deal with him. And then from that end, now it's on you to make sure you do the best possible promotion that you possibly can to make sure that that company's happy. And either they'll come back for more or it just looks good on your resume, so to speak, when you go to the next brand company, because you can say, hey, look, this is what I did for this company. This is kind of what I received from them in terms of payment or product. How do we make a deal work here? How do I promote your brand? I'm a pro athlete. Like people will listen to me. I'm in the know space. And my brand is only going to continue to grow. So I think that's the value add on there. I think like Hercules Tires is that one of the people that I did a brand deal with for some tires for my truck, but they're still posting the same video that I did back in 2022. Like they'll repost it every so often now and still use that content and still tag me in it. And it's still building my brand in that sense. So definitely just like, you won't get anywhere if you don't start somewhere and fail a few times, maybe send a few emails like just off yourself and just see like, how, what you need to do to work on better, watch YouTube videos, like everything you want to learn is out there on the internet nowadays. Mm-hmm. So that would just definitely be my advice is just like go out there, look at something on YouTube, find a video, it'll teach you how to do it. And then, you put your own spin on it and go from there.
That's so good. Jimmy, you've been a bystander for this one.
Now I'm taking all the information. I learned a lot because from somebody as a fan of the CFL, and obviously like I was a fan of Courtney when he was playing too. I'm here thinking, CFL players are making bank and they're living great. And then here you are, you're telling me like, man, like my first year, I was just paying off all my debts, trying to just make it to the next check. So like, it's definitely for the average, the fan that's kind of looking in and doesn't know a lot of things that are happening behind. Like this is a very insightful conversation. But from my background, like I love marketing, I love content creation. Like I have my YouTube channel that I monetize and getting brand deals and stuff like that. I love your Instagram. I love when you're making those plays and you're posting them. You're breaking down the CFL DBs versus wide receivers. I see one of your viral posts that had like almost 1 million on TikTok. What are
Yeah.
some of like when you're reaching out to these brands, are there any concrete numbers that you can share with us that, you're like, hey, like I get X amount of impressions, or this is the amount of engagement that I look, are they looking for that type of stuff? Or are they just like super interested to work with the CFL athlete?
Yeah, I think if you can, like, so what I do nowadays is like I'll include like whether it's a specific video that I've done previous, and then maybe throw in like a specific brand video that I've done, how it's been in, like impression wise, like the analytics on that. And then maybe I'll throw in like one of my most viral videos and like say, hey, this is like the standard of what I've done here. Like this is it's almost like you're writing a resume for yourself to sell yourself to this company. So I would definitely like advise people, if you can, like pull the analytics from like whatever, if you've done a brand deal before, or if you haven't, pull the analytics from like your best video and say, hey, this is my impressions from this video. Like this is just scratching the surface of what, I can do on, or what I've done on social media. And this is kind of what I can bring to your company. Like this is the bare minimum impressions I'll get. And then from there, most everything is kind of already slated, like in terms of like, I know like YouTube has like their clicks per mil in terms of like how much money you'll make for the ads they place on your videos. So most companies kind of understand like, all right, like I only have 6,000 followers, but I can't go ask like a mom and pop shop for $10,000 just to, make a video about them, because they're not dumb. Like they still understand like, all right, there's still levels to the marketing game and stuff like that. So I think understanding, at the end of the day, understanding what your worth is, because the moment you sell yourself for less than what you feel like it takes to get that work done, you're in trouble, because now that's the number that you set and you can't do anything about it. So finding that number where you feel like you're valued at, but also not being like overzealous to the point where it turns brands away. So I think for me, a lot starting out, it would be like, oh, hey, I'll do a post for you for like whatever, $150, $200. And then going about it by that end. But I also, in saying that, I also know there's the end that you can get to where you start to kind of sell yourself for too many brands, and then now you've kind of convoluted, I guess, not to say who you are, but convoluted your social media platform as like this addy type guy where you don't see any like, who are you sort of deal when you go on, someone's social media. Like if you see a bunch of ads, it's like, oh, well, why would I follow that person? All they do is do brand deals and do ads. Like they do no personal connection type videos. And that's what I kind of learned is the most viral are videos that like people can relate to. Not like, no ad video is ever going to get like 10 million views unless it's like Mr. Beast or, Drake's doing a video for something. But if you're a regular creator, like you got to make consistent content, and that will sell itself. Even if you don't have a lot of views, if you can show a company that you're consistent with posting, they'll have like, they won't think twice about doing a brand deal with you, or like maybe paying a little bit extra for you, because they know like at the end of the day, like, okay, this guy's consistent and at least he posts every day. So like every day he posts, there's a chance that he might go viral. So some of these companies are like, oh, I can get it on the ground floor with this guy and 10x my business if he gets a viral video because he used my water bottle, or use my knee sleeve or my arm sleeve in a video. And now like, boom, you just became that much more valuable to that company because you have a catalog that you already can pull from and show to them.
Gems. Wow. That's real. So, so Stav, your transition out the rookie deal, you're becoming a vet. Like, what kind of game are you kicking to the incoming rookie class on anything really, like financial, taking care of your body, just like prepping for the season? Like, you're entering into the off season. You're in the midst of the off season now, but when training camp gets here, what are those conversations going to be like for you and the next generation?
Yeah, definitely for me. I mean, I'm always telling guys like, save your money, don't spend it. For the guys that like, for the American guys, because a lot of them have to send the money back, right? And that was for me too. Like you send the money back, and it's that exchange rate hits you really hard. So there are like, within the CFLPA, like we have partnerships with Payline by Ice, and you get a little bit of a better deal. And I know a lot of guys don't even know that, but you get a little bit of a better deal when you're sending money back from Canada to the US in terms of the wire transfers, because those fees add up in themselves. It's like you send back 10 transfers back home, and all of a sudden yeah, you got your money back, but you may have paid $500 to $1,000 in fees over time of that. So being able to understand that and save that money is definitely something I'm always telling guys. There's even like the benefits of our CFLPA like medical plan, and just telling guys like, hey, you get $500 of like paid for massages like reimbursed to you. So like use that. Or if you don't use it during the season, like go get a massage in the off season, or go get physio in the off season. It's covered $500. So is chiropractic visits. Like save your money that way too, and explaining that to guys. And living in Hamilton is honestly a little bit easier to convince guys to save their money. Whereas like if you got guys that are living in Toronto or Ottawa or Vancouver, it's really hard to like say, hey, like, yeah, I'm not going to go have this fancy dinner in downtown Toronto at, this steakhouse, or, just insert any restaurant name that's down there, and you're going to end up spending a lot of money. But definitely the biggest thing is don't eat out. Like, yeah, treat yourself every once in a while, but if you can either cook food for yourself or get like a meal prep service, that's going to save you a ton of money just on that end. Or like the roommate thing, like getting a roommate is going to be huge.
Jimmy, do you have any more before I ask the final question?
No, I'm good. I've enjoyed myself here.
Okay, so Stav, this is a question that we ask people at the end. Who are your top 3 athletes of all time?
Top 3 athletes of all time? Oh man.
And it's not necessarily the best. It is your top 3.
Okay, my top 3. Yeah. In no particular order, because that would be difficult. But Kobe Bryant, for sure. That's my top athlete of all time. He's probably my number 1, if I'm being honest. I never watched Michael Jordan, so I can't speak for him. So Kobe's my favorite. Biased California guy.
Did you ever see Kobe live?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I never got to see him live. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or actually, I think I did one year. He came. They actually played like an exhibition game in Bakersfield. I think him and Shaq were there. I don't think they played. But I was also like a young kid. Like I barely remember that game as it is. I just remember being there.
Right.
But yeah, never got to watch him play. But watched him on TV win a few NBA championships. Was definitely really fun.
For sure.
So him. Cristiano Ronaldo, was a big fan of him growing up. That was like my favorite soccer player. Man, number 3, it's probably going to go a tie between Sidney Crosby and Terrell Owens. And that's maybe like a weird one, but like I was like the biggest Terrell Owens fan growing up as a kid. And yes, like may have not won a Super Bowl, and he may have been on some teams that he didn't catch the ball so well, but like T.O. was a guy that like I followed from like the Niners. Then I became like a Cowboys fan when he's on the Cowboys. Or sorry, it was the Eagles first, right? Or did he go Cowboys Eagles? It was one of the two, but I was an Eagles fan for a little bit and then a Cowboys fan for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when he went to the Bills, I was like, all right, I can't jump anymore. I can't jump ship anymore. So I just stayed with the Cowboys. But he was definitely one of my favorite top players all time, like receiver wise. And then Sidney Crosby was like, he's the dude to me for sure. Like one of the best in the NHL to do it, and like still being able to play at a high level at the age he's at. For as long he's been as he's been playing has been definitely something cool to see. Amazing. But yeah, some interesting picks there. I'm sure you've never had those 3.5 guys.
That's dope. We love it, man. There's so many to choose from. You can't really make a wrong answer. So
yeah,
if anybody wants to catch up with all the viral videos, where should they follow you at?
Oh yeah, just follow me on Instagram. Probably just type in Stavros Katz and my name will come up. My Instagram handle is so long and I can't change it because I'm verified. And that was like one of the biggest mistakes I ever did, was like I put my full name, which in and of itself is like a unique thing. Like I put my first name, my middle name, and my last name, so it's super long.
Yeah.
So it's Stavros Anastasios Katsantonis is my Instagram handle, which is a mouthful. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Stavros Katz, YouTube channel Stavros Katsantonis. Trying to get more posts on there, but for the time being, it's for sure football first, and then all that stuff will come naturally.
All right, man. Congrats on the new contract, and we look forward to watching you this summer. Do your thing.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on.
3, 2, 1, yeah!